Part 85. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 845. Swish. Oh. Oh ho. Boom. Boom. After the Yuri guards gradually approached, Wang Ling released a powerful shockwave, instantly killing hundreds of infantrymen around him. Even tanks and vehicles were heavily damaged. Taking advantage of the rare gap, Wang Ling stepped up his shooting, blasting all approaching tanks, temporarily ensuring his safety. Kill. Kill. Come on. Dot. However, being trapped in a tight siege and facing the siege of the total forces of the three major bases, no matter how powerful Wang Ling is, he will inevitably be severely passive. The large troops guarded by Yuri in the rear have been approaching in a large area. It is difficult to defeat him with just his strafing firepower. It blocked them all out, and the shockwave attack, after all, consumes mental power and cannot be released without limit. And the most important thing is that Wang Ling suddenly took a look at the electronic map and discovered that laser UFOs flew out one after another above the tank factories of the three major bases, hovering and gathering in the sky. We can't get entangled any longer, or we'll capsize in the gutter. Of course Wang Ling wanted to destroy the entire Russian branch, but obviously, with his own strength, he could only severely damage it, but could not completely annihilate it. Of course, it's not Wang Ling's character to just retreat. If he doesn't turn this place upside down, it's not considered revenge. Lightning flashed in his mind, and Wang Ling had an idea in the blink of an eye. When Yuri's large army failed to fill the vacuum, Wang Ling suddenly changed his strategy, and the Yuri guards pointed in one direction. There was a roar. Surrounded in the center, Wang Ling resisted all the guards. It was difficult, but in one direction alone, it was very easy. Under his fierce bombardment, the Yuri guards in that direction were quickly cleared out of an empty area. Wang Ling caught seizing this opportunity, he rampaged through in the form of the Wild Beast King. Naturally, the surrounding infantry and tanks could not watch him break through, quickly changed the direction of the encirclement, and opened fire on Wang Ling. However, Wang Ling relied on the resistance of the Wild Beast King to bear the bombardment and forcefully break through. However, his breakout was not to escape, but to cause deeper destruction. After successfully breaking through, with Wang Ling's speed, he could escape from the Russian branch at any time, but he turned around and rushed towards a Yuri base. Quick, stop him. Don't let him come over. Seeing Wang Ling's movements in the electronic video, the commander of the base was immediately frightened and his face turned pale, and he kept shouting. Under his order, the guards who had originally poured out of the base quickly gathered in, trying to encircle and suppress Wang Ling from behind. But Wang Ling's speed was much faster than them, and they couldn't catch up for a while. As soon as they turned around, Wang Ling had already broken into the base and was counterattacked by two Getter cannons. The Getter cannon is very lethal to infantry, but Wang Ling's current resistance is no worse than that of ordinary tanks. Under the primary firepower of the Getter cannon, it is difficult to have much effect on Wang Ling for a while. The damage attracted Wang Ling's attention. He ran quickly and came under two Getter cannons one after another. He dropped two bombs and successfully blew them up. It stands to reason that the defense force of this base should be very strong to guard the Sosan branch, but in fact, precisely because the Sosan branch is too hidden, the three major bases have gathered a large number of guards, but their own defense buildings are still worse than not on the front line battlefield. This was what Wang Ling wanted. He blew up two Getter cannons, quickly moved his position, blew up two mind control towers, and then blew up three biochemical reactors. After blasting to this position, the Getter tank and the Tornado tank in the two tank bunkers beside him finally reached Wang Ling and opened fire to counterattack. However, Wang Ling still carried the firepower, quickly moved closer, blew up two tank bunkers one after another, and blasted two tanks with the attack power of his physical fist. Taking advantage of this time, the Yuri guards at the rear were gradually approaching him. Even the laser UFOs in the air that had not yet been finally assembled were alerted and participated in the encirclement and suppression. However, Wang Ling was still stubborn. He bypassed the laser UFO and evaded the encirclement and suppression army. He jumped several times and came directly to the command post. Under the fearful eyes of the commander, he directly blew up the command post. Afterwards, Wang Ling continued to change direction, blowing up the psychic detector, dodging the pursuing laser UFO, and blowing up the tank factory. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Swish swish swish. Next to the tank factory, there were 3 getter cannons. The laser UFO that had just stopped in the air was also firing, focusing the fire on Wang Ling's body, aggravating his injuries. At this point in the bombing, the base was basically destroyed. Wang Ling did not bother to fight back against these buildings. He turned around and rushed out of the base. His body injuries were quickly repaired. He stopped again, cleared away the chasing guards, and killed hundreds of them. The infantry, a dozen tanks, until the laser UFO chased them from behind, then they continued to act like a slippery man, ran rampant, broke into another base, and blew up 2 getter cannons in a matter of seconds. Wang Ling is also determined, and he will never give up until the Russian branch is turned upside down. He's targeting me again, this bastard. Quick, stop preparing, mobilize all the laser UFOs quickly, if it's too late we'll all be finished. The commander of the base suddenly panicked and did not bother to gather other laser UFOs. He quickly mobilized all the laser UFOs on standby in the base and surrounded the command post, trying to use the laser UFOs as a deterrent. Strength, protect yourself thoroughly. While the laser UFO was moving, Wang Ling had already blown up 2 mind control towers, a biochemical reactor, and even a combat laboratory in the base. Originally, according to Wang Ling's route, the next target was the command post, but when he saw the laser UFO in action, Wang Ling could only postpone it and instead blew up the exposed tank factory, and then continued 2 tank bunkers, a getter machine gun were blown up, and the psychic detector was also blown up. It seemed that the next step was to blow up the command post, but unexpectedly, all the laser UFOs from the other 2 bases arrived here, with a total number of more than 50. Damn, you guys are so cruel. Wang Ling was crazy and his eyes were red from the explosion, but he did not lose his mind. The current battle formation was enough to threaten Wang Ling's life. No matter how strong his head was, he might be blown up. There was no way he could continue. It went on. Forget it, we've had enough of the bombing so far, we'll stop it when we're done. Seeing those laser UFOs, some of which were guarding the command post, while others were rushing towards him, Wang Ling also wanted to retreat. Gritting his teeth, he bypassed the pursuing guards from behind, blew up a getter cannon, and forced his way out. Base. Logically speaking, since he had already made up his mind to retreat, Wang Ling should have retreated by now. However, when he made up his mind to retreat, Wang Ling's peripheral vision suddenly spotted the palace on the electronic map. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 846. Wang Ling was very familiar with this palace. Not only was it the exclusive palace for Yuri's clone, but Wang Ling even lived in this palace in the Russian branch during the time he was under control. However, now that the control was lifted, Wang Ling returned to the coalition camp, and when he saw this luxurious palace, he felt awkward and dazzling from the bottom of his heart. You want to build a palace? You really think you are a king and you are the only one who enjoys it? Humph, now that all the people who can live in the palace are gone, why are you left? After a few curses, Wang Ling suddenly changed his direction and rushed straight towards the palace. This sudden turn also startled many infantry guards. Although these guards wanted to kill Wang Ling, after this tragic battle, they also knew how difficult Wang Ling was and did not want to confront him head-on. Originally, Wang Ling rushed out of the base, and the road down the mountain was not far away. Although they were unwilling to give in fact, many infantrymen were looking forward not to killing Wang Ling, but to tell Wang Ling to get out of the way quickly so that they could take a breather. But who would have thought that instead of running away, Wang Ling ran towards the center of the top of the mountain, making the infantrymen shocked and angry. He wants to blow up the palace. Quick, stop him. That is a symbol of the leader's majesty. There is no room for loss. Stop him. Sure enough, after realizing Wang Ling's goal, this group of troops immediately received the commander's urging, and had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue the encirclement and suppression. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. In the process of Wang Ling's charge, he would inevitably bump into the base guards who were encircling them. Facing this group of guards, Wang Ling showed no mercy at all. He directly attacked and wiped them out, so cleanly that almost no troops could block his steps. Naturally, this also included laser UFOs. Wang Ling did not stop to deal with this thing specifically. Instead, he found the route with the least number of them and rushed over forcefully, at the cost of suffering a few laser beams. After that, he speeded up and ran wildly. It didn't take long before he successfully arrived in front of the palace. Then he placed the bomb without hesitation. There was a boom. This building that symbolized Yuri's majesty was destroyed by Wang Ling. This explosion really blinded the remaining two commanders, and they were filled with shock and anger. However, before they could react, Wang Ling turned around and ran towards the spiritual beacon without stopping. Stop him. Quick, stop him. Keep the spiritual beacon, don't let him blow it up, hurry up. The two commanders were even more furious and almost roared to urge the troops. It's true that the palace is a symbol of Yuri's majesty, but in fact, the role of the spiritual beacon is much greater than the palace. Even with the ability of the spiritual empire, it is very troublesome to build this thing. Wang Ling blew up this spiritual beacon. Target, that would cause a lot of interference to the plans of the Soul Empire. Buzzing. Buzzing. The troops received the order and had no choice but to bite the bullet and speed up the pursuit. However, the speed of the infantry was too slow after all. Even the wild orcs could not catch up with Wang Ling. There were more than a dozen Get tanks and more than a dozen laser UFOs in the vanguard force, which split away first. Among them, the Getter tank carried out the order of one commander and ran after Wang Ling, but the laser UFO carried out the order of another commander and flew towards the psychic beacon. In a hurry, he glanced at the electronic map and discovered the movement of Yuri's guard. Wang Ling did not dare to neglect, gritted his teeth, and accelerated forward. Not only did he get rid of the Getter tank, but he even arrived in his mind before the laser UFO beacon area. Even though this psychic beacon is located in the Ruishan branch, there are many defensive buildings around it. When it touches Wang Ling, the three Getter cannons fire immediately. But Wang Ling withstood such firepower and charged forcefully, blowing it up in just a few jumps. Taking advantage of this short delay, the dozen or so laser UFOs were already approaching here. The first few laser UFOs immediately opened fire on Wang Ling, firing laser beams rapidly. Snort. At this point in the battle, Wang Ling was already injured all over his body. If calculated according to the blood bar of the red alert world, he was already in a state of residual health. After being bombarded by the laser UFO, Wang Ling was even more injured. But now that we are here, how can Wang Ling give up? Gritting his teeth, he turned around and jumped to the spiritual beacon, blowing it up in the blink of an eye. Buzz. And with the destruction of the spiritual beacon, the spiritual power that originally spread to the entire Ruishan area also disappeared in an instant. The controlled villagers also returned to normal, blinking confused eyes one by one, not knowing what was going on. What happened? Ah! As for the two Yuri base commanders, when they saw the scene with their own eyes, they seemed to be crazy and screamed like crazy. After going crazy, he screamed, "Kill! Kill him at all costs! We must not let him go!" Swish. At the ruins of the psychic beacon, after blowing up this terrifying building, Wang Ling was caught off guard by several laser beams. Even though Wang Ling's body, the Wild Beast King, was so injured, it felt a little shaky. Not only that, but the Getter tank group pursuing from behind also arrived. As long as the two types of troops opened fire together, Wang Ling might really be able to tell the truth here. Buzz buzz. But how could Wang Ling compromise so easily? He cast 3 mental power lines in succession, controlled 3 Get tanks, and bombarded 3 laser UFOs respectively, attracting their firepower. Wang Ling himself turned around, regardless of whether it was the entrance or exit on the top of the mountain, and rushed directly towards the direction where the guard was weakest. After fighting until now, we are completely done. It's time to retreat. Buzzing. Except for the 3 laser UFOs that were restrained, all the other UFOs chased after Wang Ling, as if they were determined to fight to the death. Snort. After seeing these chasing troops, Wang Ling was also very angry, but he had no time to block them. He kept full speed and broke through several weak defense lines. Finally, he reached the edge of the top of Ruishan Mountain, and then jumped down. Of course, Wang Ling did not jump randomly. On the second day after arriving at the Ruishan branch, Wang Ling inspected the appearance of Ruishan and even remembered the winding road in his mind. But now it comes in handy. The location where he jumped was not the entrance to the top of Ruishan Mountain, but there was part of the winding road below, but the height difference was larger. Wang Ling controlled the strength of his jump, and he happened to land on this winding road. The shock of landing also caused Wang Ling's injury. The wound cracked and he spit out a mouthful of blood. But Wang Ling couldn't care about this now. Compared with his life, these injuries were nothing. Maintaining this tenacity, Wang Ling gritted his teeth and continued to jump down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 847. Ah! Boom! On the winding mountain road in Ruishan, a black shadow suddenly fell from the sky and landed on the mountain road below with a bang. This figure is naturally Wang Ling. Normally, when ground troops go down the mountain, they have to go down the mountain in sequence along the winding mountain road. However, Wang Ling did not take the usual path in an emergency and jump directly from the winding mountain road to the bottom. If it were changed to ordinary soldiers would never dare to do this. Of course, Wang Ling was not feeling well either. Although he had undergone advanced strengthening and jumped in the posture of a wild beast king, the injuries on his body were too serious after all. Under the continuous shocks, Wang Ling's body felt as if it was overwhelming, and a fishy smell surged into his throat. But he forcefully swallowed it, gritted his teeth, and continued to jump downwards. Wang Ling had to work so hard. With the way he was going down the mountain, the ground troops would definitely not be able to catch up with him, but the Air Force could. As he jumped on the winding mountain road, dozens of laser UFOs behind him rushed out of the top of Ruishan Mountain one after another, chasing in the air regardless of the terrain. Even if Wang Ling jumped again with all his strength, the distance between the two sides was still there, gradually shrinking. Boom! In this mountainous area, Ruishan Mountain is the tallest, but no matter how high it is, there is a limit. Wang Ling jumped several times in succession, at the cost of aggravating his physical injuries, and finally successfully jumped to the foot of the mountain. He wiped away the blood dripping from the corner of his mouth and looked straight. He started running quickly in one direction, and within a moment he was in the forest. Not long after he ran out, dozens of laser UFOs also caught up with him. In the mountains and forests, the terrain is complex, and Wang Ling's speed will inevitably be slowed down a bit as he shuttles through it. However, this group of laser UFOs are not worried about the terrain at all. They use electronic maps to lock Wang Ling and keep moving forward at full speed in the air at all times. Under this situation, the distance between the two parties is shrinking and shrinking. Hateful. Looking back and seeing this scene, Wang Ling also remembered gritting his teeth. It's not that he doesn't want to kill these laser UFOs, it's just that he really can't do it. Indeed, having been strengthened to this point, Wang Ling has become an extremely abnormal figure in the Red Alert world, and has even destroyed the balance of combat power. However, Wang Ling is not invincible. He still has nemesis, such as this laser UFO. Wang Ling's air defense power is very strong, so strong that it gives the Allies a headache, but compared to the combat effectiveness of ground troops, his air defense firepower is still short after all. If there are 5 or 6 laser UFOs, Wang Ling can easily solve it, but if there are 50 or 60 ships, how about a hammer? Even in his heyday, he couldn't have fought against that kind of battle, let alone Wang Ling being seriously injured now. After advanced strengthening, his recovery ability has indeed greatly increased, even surpassing that of ordinary elite soldiers. But there is a limit after all. No matter how fast the recovery is, there must be a time transition. Wang Ling's current serious injury cannot be recovered in a short time. Roar. However, although these pursuers cannot be eliminated, if they can get rid of the followers, they can still do it with all their strength. With a long roar, Wang Ling's body suddenly rose rapidly, bursting almost all the clothes on his body, and finally settled into the state of a 3-meter-tall giant beast king. Then he grabbed the torn clothes and wrapped them around his crotch. He wore a special pair of shorts to cover up his shame, and then he let go of his speed and ran as fast as he could. In his form of the wild beast king, no matter the size of his body, his strength remains the same, but his speed is quite different. Just imagine, running at the same frequency, isn't it obvious which one runs faster, a 1-meter-long leg or a nearly 2-meter-long leg? What's more, now Wang Ling is traveling in the mountains and forests. The terrain is relatively complicated, which is inconvenient when he has short legs. However, running in the posture of a 3-meter-high wild beast king, he can easily overcome many terrain obstacles, just like a car. Just like an oversized off-road vehicle, if you encounter a tree blocking the route, you can just crash through it without having to make a special detour to waste time. After this change, the speed surged in an instant, almost half as fast as the original speed. Previously, with the advantage of the Air Force, the laser UFOs were able to gradually approach Wang Ling. However, as Wang Ling accelerated, those laser UFOs could only watch Wang Ling run away. Although it is an Air Force, the laser UFO has too many functions after all, which also slows down its speed. It is far not as fast as the Allied fighter planes, rocket pilots and coalition-armed helicopters. Facing Wang Ling's sudden acceleration, they are a solution. Nothing. Taking advantage of this advantage, Wang Ling worked hard and pulled the laser UFO farther and farther away. After a series of running around, he rushed out of the mountainous area. After another running, he finally left the Russian branch of the Seoul Empire in his impression. In the electronic map area, the laser UFO that was chasing behind him was still quite far away from him. It was impossible to catch up with him for a while, and the target was also lost in the electronic map. Trash. A group of laser UFOs can't even catch up with one person. What are you doing for food? Why did you let him run away like this? When the two commanders saw that Wang Ling was missing from the electronic video, they immediately became furious. Wang Ling's yelling turned the entire Russian branch upside down. Not only did he kill the leader's clone, he also killed Yuri X and 6 generals. The total strength of the 3 major bases was reduced by 4. Going up, one base collapsed, another base was almost disabled, even Yuri's palace was blown up, and the spiritual beacon was poisoned. For the Russian branch, in addition to the direct loss and fear, it is also a sense of shame. However, after this fight, they failed to keep Wang Ling and instead let him run away. It was like a huge slap, which made the faces of the remaining two commanders feel burning pain. Of course, things would not just end like that. The two generals were still issuing orders hysterically. Keep chasing me. Even to the ends of the world, I have to kill him. I can't let him live in this world. Wang Ling is completely out of control, and it has become a climate that will pose a huge threat to us in the future. We must not let him return to the coalition forces. The Russian branch is surrounded by our sphere of influence. Let Wang Ling escape, spread the news, and let all the bases in the surrounding area pay attention to Wang Ling. Once discovered, they will kill him at all costs. These two commanders were really anxious, or in other words, the entire Mind Empire was anxious about this. Those laser UFOs that were chasing Wang Ling before had actually planned to stop and return after losing their target on the electronic map. However, they received an order to continue tracking. They had no choice but to follow Wang Ling's escape direction. Chased him. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 848. If we follow Wang Ling's escape direction, can we really find Wang Ling? So naive. Wang Ling is not a robot, not that simple and real. On the contrary, this guy is extremely cunning. After all, when he was controlled before, Wang Ling spent a lot of time in the Russian branch. Wang Ling knew very well the electronic map range of the Russian branch of the Mind Empire. Beyond this range, the Russian branch would not be able to observe his movements. After estimating that he had broken through the range of the electronic map, Wang Ling immediately changed his direction, deviating from an angle of 45 degrees and continuing to run wildly. However, the group of laser UFOs could not detect Wang Ling's movement route at all. They just followed the original straight line mechanically. Not only were they unable to catch up, but the further they chased him, the further the distance became. After escaping here, Wang Ling was able to escape safely for the time being, but Wang Ling did not dare to relax at this time. He continued to run at high speed for more than 2 hours, and did not stop until he ran into a waterfall. This place is not suitable for fighting, nor is it an important military location. Few troops will be involved here, so it is relatively safer. After searching for a while, Wang Ling found a natural cave and got into it. After running away for so long, he finally found a temporary shelter. Wang Ling became paralyzed almost instantly and lay down in the cave, breathing heavily. At the same time, his body shrank and returned to its original normal state. Body condition. The injuries on the blue-black wild beast king's body were not obvious before, but after recovery, the wounds on his body were a bit shocking. Not only were there dozens of bullet holes, but there were also large areas of burns under the laser light. The wounds were slowly moving toward there was blood flowing outside, almost turning Wang Ling into a bloody man. Of course, the more serious injuries were still in his body, and his internal organs were in pain as if they were almost bursting. Only the wild beast king form could withstand this kind of injury. If it was in a normal physical condition, even if it was injected with a high-level enhancer, it would probably be in danger. Of course, even if he is as strong as the wild beast king, with this injury, he may not be able to endure even if he withstands 5 or 6 more laser beams. Hoo hoo. Ha 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 ha. In this state, Wang Ling breathed for a while, then laughed again. His laughter was very cheerful and innocent, but also very wanton and cunning. Grandma's spiritual empire dares to control me, and you will lose your teeth. Is it possible for you to scheme against me? A group of NPCs still want to turn against the guests. You really want to transform me and completely turn me into a puppet. I can't beat you to death. Ha ha ha. After being controlled by the Mind Empire for so long, Wang Ling was indeed upset after his return. However, After all this vigorous destruction, he escaped successfully. Although Wang Ling was seriously injured now, he was extremely comfortable and felt that his great revenge had been avenged. A pleasure. Tisk, tisk. It's rare to see Wang Ling laugh like this, and even Uncle He couldn't help but tease, "You really opened my eyes to how such things can be done in the red alert world." Wang Ling continued to laugh for a while before replying, "Why can't it be done? I'm a player, I'll decide." "It's just because you did it, that's why I was surprised," Uncle He said. "Have you forgotten the time when you had battlefield phobia? Just knowing the duality of the different dimensional system, you already had no fear at the beginning. You are ready to fight, but now, at the risk of being killed, you actually made a riot in the branch of the Soul Empire. Not to mention what the final result of the riot was, just this approach surprised me." "Yeah." Wang Ling finally calmed down at this time, took a breath, and explained, "To be honest, if it were before, I really wouldn't have dared to mess around like this. But, who let the Mind Empire plot against me for so long? There are still 3 clay figures spreading anger, let alone me. Moreover, I am not committing suicide by doing this. If I hadn't received advanced enhancements and had the form of the Wild Beast King to rely on, I wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous. I would have the confidence to mess around and cause trouble. Yes, without these conditions, wouldn't it be nonsense?" As he spoke, Wang Ling raised his arm. The bullet inside had long since disappeared, and most of the bullet hole had healed on its own during this period. Even the exaggerated burns were visible to the naked eye. The speed is recovering. Or else Wang Ling is envious of the recovery ability of elite soldiers after the initial strengthening. This kind of ability is indeed too incredible. Uncle He didn't say anything else, and Wang Ling didn't do anything outrageous after venting for so long. Apart from the sound of rumbling water, no other sounds could be heard at the scene. After a period of time like this, all the injuries on the body surface were finally recovered. However, internal injuries are not so easy to recover from and require more time to recuperate. With Wang Ling's current physical strength, this state no longer affected his movements, so he stood up directly. After being stunned for a while, he walked out of the cave and came to the river under the waterfall. He took a bath and was clean. The blood stains on the body were washed and the broken clothes were dried on a stone in the distance to be exposed to the sun. After doing this, Wang Lingke returned to the cave feeling refreshed. After taking a look, he felt that something was missing, so he went out again, picked up some leaves and twigs, and made a temporary mat to spread out. Wang Ling is used to sleeping on the bed in the Ruishan Branch Palace, and he is quite enjoying it now. After lying like this for a while, Wang Ling thought about some things in his mind, then contacted Uncle He and returned to the transfer station. Speaking of which, Wang Ling has been living in the red alert world for several months since he was controlled. Now that he has returned and taken revenge on the Soul Empire, the next step is to return to the real world. It's time. For this reason, Wang Ling was still quite anxious and looking forward to it. He didn't stay at the transfer station for long before saying hello to Uncle He and left. In the real world, the ward in the hospital where Wang Ling is located is quite busy now. The originally good hospital bed is now completely broken. Wang Ling on the hospital bed is covered in blood, and even his clothes, mattress, and other items are covered in blood. It was dyed blood red and looked quite oozing. And Wang Ling fell into the blood that had not completely dried up in a very inelegant posture, surrounded by a group of nurses and doctors, surrounding the place, one by one competing in a circle. What a strange patient. What's going on with him? Is he alive or dead? I heard from Dr. Kui that he is still alive, but he just can't wake up. He looks like a vegetative state when he sleeps like this. No, he seems to be weirder than a vegetative state. Some time ago, he would tremble for a long time every 1 or 2 hours. This time it was even more violent. The tremors were so large that it was a bit scary. Not only that, the trembling was over and he was fine before, but just now he didn't know what happened, he became more evil and shook the bed. And he had so many strange injuries for no reason. We quickly called the doctor came, but just when the doctor was about to push him to the emergency room, his injuries healed on their own. Now even the doctor is confused and doesn't know what's going on with him. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 849. No, can you heal your own wounds? Isn't that just like the Supermen and mutants in the movies? Are there really such people in reality? I didn't believe it at first, but I saw it with my own eyes. This person's identity must be extraordinary. He has a secret hidden in him. He might just be like the one in the movie, a hidden hero among the people. Then what's going on with him now? Why can't he wake up? Has he been plotted by someone? Otherwise, why would he be like this? Then I don't know. Curiosity is human nature. What's more, Wang Ling's current situation is completely beyond common sense. If you insist on explaining it, I'm afraid I can only explain it with the one in the movie. For this reason, the nurses and even doctors surrounding the place did not dare to touch Wang Ling. They could only discuss curiously on the sidelines, not knowing what to do for a while. Snort. While they were discussing, Wang Ling suddenly groaned on the broken hospital bed, his body gradually twisted for a while, and then he opened his eyes, showing a confused look. Wake up, he's awake. I've been unconscious for so long and finally woke up. He woke up? I thought he was in a vegetative state. When the surrounding nurses and doctors saw this, they were surprised and shocked, as if they had seen something unbelievable. As for Wang Ling, it had been too long since he had returned to the real world. When he returned, he was inevitably a little uncomfortable, and he also had some physical problems. He couldn't calm down for a while, so he was confused. However, after all, he was used to traveling back and forth again and again. This confusion did not last long before he returned to normal. He immediately saw the nurses and doctors watching in front of him. Listening to their exclamations, Wang Ling suddenly felt panicked. This kind of panic has never happened before, even when there was a big fuss in the Ruishan branch. It's not that he's afraid of being seen, but that he's afraid of being known about his uniqueness. After all, the existence of a different dimensional system cannot be seen at all. But in the current situation, it is obvious that his uniqueness has been seen by others, but these people have never thought of the other dimensional system. But if his peculiarity is spread, he will also be in a lot of trouble. I am afraid that people from all walks of life will come to meet him, and there is no guarantee that no one will guess something by then. Of course, that is what may happen in the future. As for the embarrassment now, Wang Ling has a hard time dealing with it. Just as he was beating a drum in his heart, a doctor had already asked, "Young man, how are you doing now?" This question also brought Wang Ling back to reality from all kinds of worries and fantasies. His expression was awkward and wary. "I don't know, but he is still alive anyway." The doctor was even more embarrassed by this answer. He twitched the corner of his mouth before he had the courage to ask, "What happened to you recently? Why were you unconscious for so long? And how did your injuries heal so quickly?" I didn't want to face this problem, but the doctor asked anyway. Previously, Wang Ling used the excuse of having too many accounts and not having to worry about being bitten by lice to put the real things behind and take the lead in taking revenge on the Soul Empire. However, as the saying goes, when you go out to fool around, you always have to pay it off. No matter how many debts you have to pay them off one by one. He didn't want to think about it too much before, but now it's time for him to be in trouble. Why? For what reason? These doctors and nurses are not fools, and they are not easy to deceive. You can't deceive them by just making up any excuses, and it is impossible to tell the truth. This is really embarrassing. At this time, Wang Ling was even regretting, why was he in such a hurry to come back? If I had thought of an excuse first in the system transfer station, would I be so troubled? Well now, a circle of people stared curiously, waiting for his explanation. He couldn't suddenly return to the transfer station to think of an excuse under such circumstances, right? What to do? What to do? In distress, Wang Ling's eyes even flashed with murderous intent. If all these people were killed, then his secret should be kept, right? However, as soon as this thought appeared, he was immediately slapped to death. This is the real world, and the rules and restrictions are even stricter than those in the red alert world. You must not mess around. What's more, there are real people in the real world, and Wang Ling cannot accept it in his heart to commit murder here. Fortunately, when Wang Ling was in trouble, someone came to the rescue. The nurse who had previously guessed that Wang Ling was a hidden folk hero reminded him, "Dr. Kui, he just woke up. He should still be uncomfortable and his mind is not clear. We just don't ask him too closely, right?" This sentence also reminded Wang Ling, and he quickly picked up the conversation. "Yes, I am still covered. Can you stop watching? Give me some time and let me calm down. Thank you." Now that Wang Ling has said this, Dr. Kui can't continue asking about this issue. However, looking at Wang Ling, he is still a little worried. "Are you sure you are not in danger now? It's been so long. You are in a coma, how is your physical condition?" Wang Ling repeatedly assured, "No problem, don't worry." As he spoke, he stood up quickly. However, after standing up, he felt a strong sense of discomfort in his body, and his feet felt weak. He staggered and almost fell onto the empty hospital bed next door, but he finally stabilized himself in time. Dr. Kui was startled, and hurriedly stepped forward to support Wang Ling. "Be careful. You have been unconscious for so long, and your body relies on intravenous drips to maintain nutrition. Your body must not adapt to it now, so don't rush to move." I know, thank you doctor. You guys can go out first. I'll calm down and wash the blood off my body. It's so disgusting." Wang Ling said something perfunctory, and then drove the group of people out of the ward. After finally closing the door, Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. But this is only temporary after all, things have already happened, you have to think of a decent excuse, otherwise this matter will be really troublesome. Maintaining this distress, Wang Ling moved his body and was in coma for a long time. Even though he was injected with nutrient solution, he still felt a little weak due to malnutrition, but it did not affect his activities. He took off the bloody hospital gown, walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower head. Wang Ling wiped it casually and sat down and leaned against the wall. While taking a shower, he closed his eyes and his consciousness entered the system of another dimension. Inside the transfer station. Although the group of doctors and nurses were temporarily stopped, the time that Wang Ling could delay was limited after all. He could only rely on the 10 times the time flow rate in the transfer station to buffer, and thought of a way. It's so embarrassing. It's even more difficult than taking revenge on the Seoul Empire. After thinking hard for a while, Wang Ling couldn't think of a good way. Wang Ling was almost crazy. But at this time, Uncle He suddenly appeared with a mocking look on his face. "It's such a simple thing, why are you so embarrassed? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 850. Simple. When Wang Ling heard this, he raised his brows, jumped up, and asked, "How about a simple method? Uncle He, do you have any idea?" Uncle He said with a joking smile, Kill all the people who see something unusual about you these days. It'll be over. Wang Ling's face darkened instantly. His emotional uncle was specifically trying to bury him. Ha ha ha! Wang Ling's expression made Uncle He laugh. This unexpected display really hit Wang Ling's waist. After rolling his eyes, Wang Ling really didn't want to talk to Uncle He anymore. After Uncle He laughed enough, he gradually calmed down and returned to his seriousness. Okay, it's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. I also know you wouldn't do that. If this matter were to be done before, you would still have done it. There is really no way, any excuse is useless. But it is different now. What happens now? Don't forget, now that you have undergone special training by Yuri's clone, your mental power is so powerful that you have few opponents in the empire of mind. Your mental power is enough to affect the brain nerves of normal people and achieve hypnosis. Combined with mind control, can't we solve the current situation? After hearing what Uncle He said, Wang Ling's eyes suddenly lit up. Psychic power, hypnosis. This is possible. Haha, although the Mind Empire single-handedly created my current predicament, they also gave me the ability to solve it. Uncle He also added, not only the ability to crack, but also after being injected with 2 powerful medicines, you are much stronger now than before you were controlled. So, your predicament this time is a blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise. This statement aroused Wang Ling's resistance before, but now that he heard it again, Wang Ling did not refute it anymore. He even felt relieved because he had found a way to solve the problem. Knowing the solution, Wang Ling didn't stay at the transfer station any longer. He greeted Uncle He and then returned to the real world. After all, the nurses and doctors had been delayed for a while. Wang Ling did not waste this time. He took a comfortable bath, washed away the blood on his body, and rinsed the hospital gown and bed sheets. Bundle. In this hospital, Wang Ling didn't find his coat, only a set of pajamas that had been changed out earlier, and there were still some blood stains on them. There was no other way, Wang Ling could only settle for a new set of pajamas. Put on the uniform. As for the broken hospital bed, Wang Ling thought for a moment and spliced half of it together with one hand. His hands turned into rough blue-black hands, and he forcibly straightened the broken steel pipe, and then released a strong electromagnetic force, focusing on his hands. Welding the 2 halves of the hospital bed together like electric welding. Well, that's about it. I'll decorate the accident scene in advance to avoid leaving 2 obvious loopholes. Wang Ling clapped his hands and was quite satisfied with his masterpiece. Now that the accident scene has been decorated, the next step is to attack the nurses and doctors. Of course, out of caution, Wang Ling didn't want to let anything slip through the net. Apart from the nurses and doctors before, Wang Ling didn't know who else knew about him. For this reason, Wang Ling did not go directly to the nurses and doctors. Instead, he asked the cleaners about the location of the dean's office. He leisurely came to the door and broke in without knocking. The dean's office is relatively luxurious. The air conditioner blows, which brings the slightest coolness. On the LCD TV, a shopping advertisement is playing silently. Next to the leather sofa, there are several large money trees. Insurance. There are tall and expensive bookshelves next to the cabinet, and there are gold bull and human skeleton sculptures on the solid wood desk, while the dean is sitting leisurely behind the desk, sipping tea. Wang Ling suddenly broke in. The dean was also a little curious. He glanced at Wang Ling, put down the water glass and asked, "Who are you?" But Wang Ling did not answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the office environment and joked, "I didn't expect you to enjoy it. The dean's office is like the president's office." Seeing that Wang Ling completely ignored his question and even acted so grandiose, the dean also frowned. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" At this time, Wang Ling looked over and said with a casual smile, "Don't worry, I just want you to do something." First of all, buzz. Wang Ling didn't bother to talk nonsense with him, and directly used mind control, easily controlling the dean, and then asked, "I am the comatose student who was sent here a few days ago. This case should be quite special. As the dean, you should know, right?" The dean was controlled, but Wang Ling did not suppress his character too hard. After hearing what Wang Ling said, he suddenly realized, "It's you. What's the matter with you?" Being controlled by himself, Wang Ling was not worried about what would happen to the dean at all. He spoke bluntly, "It's just hypnotizing some people. Who knows about me before? Call all the people you know." "Good." The dean readily agreed, then took out his cell phone, made a call, or used a messaging software, and quickly called some nurses and doctors, some of whom Wang Ling had never seen before. After all, Wang Ling's case was so special that these people were very impressed with him and recognized him almost immediately. "It's you, that comatose student, have you woken up?" The nurse who had seen him wake up before asked curiously, "Why did you come to the dean's office?" However, Wang Ling ignored them. Instead, his eyes narrowed, and a faint spiritual power spread, almost easily invading their brains and hypnotizing them into a state of confusion. "Oh, this hypnosis works quite well." Facing the hypnotist, Wang Ling had no scruples. "Who else knows about my affairs? Call me all you know, immediately. No one is left." "Oh." As the dean alone, only a few people knew about it. Wang Ling had to use this network of connections to reach everyone in order to ensure nothing went wrong. With these successive calls, more and more people were in the dean's office. Even those who were off work were forcibly called over. It took more than half an hour to confirm that nothing was missing and everyone stayed here. There are more than 20 people in total, most of them are nurses, a few are doctors, there are also some cleaners, and even a patient. Naturally, everyone who came to this office was immediately hypnotized by Wang Ling. With more than 20 people staying here, they felt very safe. Now that everyone is here, it's time for Wang Ling to talk nonsense. "You have more or less seen or even come into contact with me before and after I was unconscious. I know you are curious, so today let me explain what happened once and for all. The reason why I was in a coma and couldn't wake up for so long is actually because..." What could it be because of? Wang Ling was confident before, but when it came to the key point, Wang Ling suddenly got stuck. The reason why he was confident was because of the existence of hypnosis. Wang Ling actually didn't think of any excuse that should be given to them during hypnosis, so he was so embarrassed. However, thinking that he had been hypnotized, Wang Ling felt emboldened. He gritted his teeth and made up a confused reason, "Because I overslept." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 851. Overslept. Wang Ling almost said these 4 words word for word, and he said them in a very clever way. Oh my God! After saying this, Wang Ling realized how nonsense this reason was, and slapped his face with one hand, which seemed very embarrassing. Not only him, but even Uncle He couldn't help but tease, "Tisk tisk. Wang Ling, your ability to make up lies is really bad. Is it because you overslept that you couldn't wake up from a coma for so long? This doesn't even apply to me. An artificial intelligence brain was choked by you." Wang Ling's face turned dark and ugly. This reason was really embarrassing. But... oh, I got it. I asked why it was so strange. I was unconscious for so long and didn't wake up. It turns out I overslept. It's so strange, why did I sleep for so long? I overslept, and I can sleep for several days in one sleep. I overslept. It's really weird that I overslept. It's such a weird way to oversleep. The group of doctors, nurses, cleaners, and patients all had expressions of realization, and they actually believed Wang Ling's nonsense. Looking at their performance, Wang Ling tugged at the corner of his mouth and asked in his mind, "Uncle He, can hypnosis make people become fools?" Uncle He laughed and said, "It's your reason. Only fools can believe it, but you insist on instilling such fool-like thoughts into them. Your hypnosis affects their subconscious, but when they meet fools in their subconscious, they will not be able to behave. Do you look like a fool? Depend on." Wang Ling's face turned even more ugly. "Uncle He, weren't you calling him a fool? So, when you oversleep, your body often trembles, and your injuries heal quickly. Why?" Just when Wang Ling was embarrassed, the Dr. Kui in front of him started asking questions again. Wang Ling took a few deep breaths. Since he had been deceived like a fool, he would continue to deceive him. "My body is shaking because I had a nightmare. And the wound healed quickly because of you. I read it wrong. Oh my God." Another lame excuse. This time the person slapping him in the face was Uncle He. Even his artificial intelligence couldn't bear to hear this ridiculous excuse. Ha 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 ha. Not only Uncle He, but this time, even the dean couldn't hold back. He squirted out all the tea in his mouth and laughed. Unlike others, the dean was not hypnotized, but mind-controlled, and he still retained his own personality. In addition to absolutely following Wang Ling's instructions, it was normal for him to think. The person under hypnosis subconsciously accepted Wang Ling's signal and could only passively believe it. However, the dean knew that this was nonsense, and it was so lame. He couldn't hold it in any longer. "You shut up." However, Wang Ling couldn't accept this laughter, so he pointed at the dean's nose and let out a loud roar. Belch. The dean couldn't help it. He absolutely obeyed Wang Ling's orders and tried to hold back his laughter. He actually made a sound like Brother Pig. After stopping him, Wang Ling rubbed his temples with a headache. As for the group of people who were hypnotized, as expected, they all had expressions of realization. "I see. It's a nightmare, what did I think, cough. It's amazing that nightmares can be done like this. I just said it was impossible for the wound to heal so quickly. It turned out I was wrong. It's really weird. I need to call and talk to my husband. I've already seen them silly once, and seeing them again, apart from a little embarrassment, I don't find it strange at all." However, the nurse took out her mobile phone and wanted to make a call. Wang Ling was startled and stopped quickly. "Don't call." The nurse was stunned for a moment, looking at a loss. Wang Ling was helpless, took 2 deep breaths, and then warned, "Don't tell anyone about me. In your heart, just treat me as an ordinary patient. It's not worth telling other people. After returning to your post, whatever should be done, don't pay attention to my affairs, try to forget it as much as possible. Okay, go back." "Oh." A group of hypnotized people responded in a confused manner, and then walked out of the dean's office one by one. The on-duty staff naturally returned to their posts, the patients returned to their beds, and the off-duty staff left the hospital. After everyone was in place, the hypnosis was lifted, but the thoughts that Wang Ling instilled in them during the hypnosis were not eliminated. Instead, they took root in their minds. They were originally very curious and surprised about Wang Ling, but now they have downplaying Wang Ling's existence, let alone promoting Wang Ling's affairs. After doing this, Wang Ling truly breathed a sigh of relief. However, while staying in the dean's office, Wang Ling made no next move for a long time. Instead, he sat on his desk with his arms crossed, looking thoughtful. After a while, Wang Ling said in his mind, "Hypnosis is a bit scary. It can actually affect people's subconscious, give orders and guide at will, instill and delete subconscious impressions and memories. Uncle He, the different dimensional system is like it is a tool for deep hypnosis. Can it also do this? Have I been hypnotized during the game, have I forgotten something, or have I gained some extra memories?" It turned out that Wang Ling, who had personally experimented with hypnosis and knew how terrifying it was, became worried about the extra-dimensional system. He. However, Uncle Hay laughed, "Boy, don't underestimate the different dimensional system. Although some of the theories of deep hypnosis are also applicable to the system is much more advanced than deep hypnosis. When you are playing the game, you are undergoing hypnosis, but your deep consciousness is truly experiencing everything in the red alert world. This is fundamentally different from hypnosis. As for memory, the other dimensional system has indeed affected you, but that is not deleting the memory, but with more memory. Don't you rely on the extra training memory to save time every time you switch arms or exchange experience books for arms. Is that so?" I was overly worried after hearing this. Wang Ling thought about it and it was exactly what Uncle Hay said, and then he let down his guard. With his worries gone, Wang Ling continued to give orders to the dean, "Call me the person in charge of monitoring again." The dean was embarrassed. "Although I am the dean, not everyone in the hospital has contact information. I have never been to the monitoring room, and I don't have much interaction with the people there." "Are you so stubborn? You haven't crossed paths with each other, so why don't you just find someone who has crossed paths with you?" "Okay." The director received the order and quickly notified the hospital's accountant, and then called the 2 staff members in today's monitoring room. There were a lot of doctors and nurses before, so Wang Ling had to choose the method of hypnosis, but there were only 2 monitors, so it was easier. When Wang Ling saw them, he didn't say much and directly cast 2 mental energy beams. Wire. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 852. Now, Wang Ling likes the abilities of the Psychic Empire's psychic troops more and more. In modern society, there are many restrictions on the use of force, but the ability on the spiritual level is unknown. He can use it in the real world with ease, without any problems. Obstacle. The 2 controlled monitors skipped any opening remarks and stood calmly, waiting for Wang Ling's order. The group of people before were more or less aware of Wang Ling's peculiarities, so Wang Ling had to hypnotize them collectively and use lame excuses to distort their impressions. But the monitor only needs to do some things for Wang Ling. There is no need for special hypnosis. He just glanced at the 2 of them casually, and Wang Ling gave instructions, "You 2, go to the monitoring room immediately and collect all the information. All the surveillance videos about me have been deleted and nothing is left." "Oh." The 2 responded and then retreated from the office to carry out their mission. After they left, the dean asked with a smile, "Are you afraid that people will know your uniqueness, so you deliberately cover up all the traces?" Facing this controlled person, Wang Ling didn't bother to make up lies. "Yes, if it is exposed, it will be too much trouble for me, so I must block the news. But I myself have no rights in the real world. That's why I have to lend your hand to give the order." After speaking, Wang Ling tilted his head and asked, "The others have taken care of it, let's talk about you. As the dean, how much do you know about my affairs?" The dean smiled and said, "Of course I have heard them talk about your special patient, but in fact I don't take you to heart. I don't know much about you, and I have never seen you. If you hadn't suddenly you broke into my office and identified yourself, but I didn't even know it was you. Others didn't take it seriously." This statement might have been hurtful to other people, but in Wang Ling's case, it made him relax a lot since the dean didn't know much about him. There was no need to hypnotize him to cover up those memories. But just when Wang Ling was relaxing, the dean changed the subject again. "But what? I don't trust you, but you already have a file when you are hospitalized. Your symptoms will be recorded in detail and kept in the hospital system for a long time." The director then revealed a piece of news. Wang Ling was stunned after hearing this, and then complained, "Why is it so troublesome? Hey, Dean, you should have a way to delete those files, right?" "Well, there is a way." The dean blinked, and although he was reluctant, he still answered honestly. Only then did Wang Ling smile. But before he could give the order, the two monitors on the other end of the mental connection passed a message to Wang Ling. Through this connection, Xiao He followed 3 people from the opposite dormitory to the hospital. "Hey, you came so quickly. Those people must have called them before to say that I was awake," Wang Ling smiled. If it were the moment when he just woke up, when these 3 people arrived, Wang Ling would only feel confused, but now with hypnosis, everything is no longer a worry. Then Wang Ling directly ordered, "Please help me delete all my hospitalization files during this period. The sooner the better, delete them as cleanly as possible. Also, by the way, you can skip all the discharge procedures for me, I'm too lazy to do that." "Good. Okay, thank you for your hard work. Goodbye." After finally saying this, Wang Ling waved his hand and walked out of the office with a comfortable look, returning to his original ward. Woof woof. Xiao He and the 3 people in the opposite dormitory were already waiting here. Seeing Wang Ling's return, Xiao He immediately became happy and jumped on Wang Ling's body. This guy was so excited that he couldn't control his strength well. If it were Wang Ling before, he would have to be knocked over by it. Fortunately, Wang Ling is no longer what he used to be, and he can hug him easily. Zia He. Woof woof. Woof woof. It really showed how much it missed Wang Ling. It kept licking Wang Ling's face and barking wildly. Its tail was like a motor, swaying rapidly. "Haha, Xiao He, don't be so excited. Am I back?" Wang Ling was so happy that he felt itchy. After a good meal of relief, he stopped Xiao He and put him down. Then the 3 people wondered, "Wang Ling, we heard from the nurse that you were awake, so we came over quickly. What's been going on with you these past few days? Why have you been sleeping so hard that you can't wake up? That's right, what's wrong with you? We almost thought you were in a vegetative state. The key is that we want to notify the school and your roommate, but Xiao He won't let us go, so we can only hold it in like this. How uncomfortable it is. How are you now?" Faced with this series of questions, Wang Ling was extremely embarrassed. However, although they were not roommates, the fact that the 3 of them were willing to take care of him and Xiao He made Wang Ling feel warm in his heart. He giggled and said perfunctorily, "It's okay now. Let's talk about the details when we go back. I'll treat us, open it up and eat." The 3 of them glanced at each other. There were a bunch of question marks above their heads. They didn't get any answers, and they felt a little awkward. People who are controlled by the mind can work very efficiently under orders. While Wang Ling and the others were chatting, the 2 monitors had already reported their work through the mental connection and successfully deleted Wang Ling's previous messages. All the surveillance videos of Wang Ling, and not long after, the director also received news that Wang Ling's hospitalization files during this period had been deleted, and the discharge procedures had been completed. Having someone do the chores really saved Wang Ling a lot of trouble. Now that the matter was settled, Wang Ling released the control. But when he was released, Wang Ling had an idea and deleted the memories of the time they were controlled. Everything seemed to be a strange coincidence. Later, Wang Ling finally took Xiao He and 3 others out of the hospital. When he arrived in a hurry, Wang Ling was not wearing a coat and was still wearing a hospital gown. He did not go back to school immediately. Instead, he went to a nearby clothing store and bought a set of brand name clothes. He also went to the store to buy a black bag and went alone. A trip to the bank. After finishing all this, I finally returned to school. Sitting on the familiar bed in the dormitory, Wang Ling stroked his dog's head and asked, "By the way, besides you, does anyone else know about my affairs?" One of the people named Guangtao replied, "We wanted to reveal it, but Xiao He wouldn't let us. We were thinking that if you didn't wake up, we told the instructor. Fortunately, you woke up in time." Woof woof, Xiao He yelled twice, squinting his eyes, seemingly satisfied with what he did, and even Wang Ling was snickering. However, Lao Shui and Lily have been here in the past few days. They asked us about it, and we told them about you. Now, except for Xiao He, we five should be the only ones in the school who know about it. Then Guangtao revealed a piece of news, and the couple in the relationship also knew about him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 853. Also, do Lao Shui and Lily know? They won't expose them to me, right? After learning the news, Wang Ling felt a little worried. However, fortunately, with hypnosis, there is still a chance of remedy. Thinking of this, Wang Ling patted Xiao Hei's dog's head and said, Xiao Hei, do you still remember the smell of Lao Shui and Lily? Go and call them here and there. Woof woof. Xiao Hei got the order, barked twice, and ran out of the dormitory directly. He was a police dog, so his mobility is very strong. Guangtao and the other three have long been accustomed to Xiao Hei's cleverness, so they don't feel surprised when they see this. After Xiao Hei left, Wang Ling was not idle. He took the black backpack and stuffed it into Guangtao, explaining, brothers, during this period, both me and Xiao Hei, thank you for taking care of me. These are my thoughts, be sure to accept them, so that I can feel more at ease. Ahem, why are you being so polite? Damn it, Guangtao casually took the backpack. Originally, he didn't take Wang Ling's gift seriously, but when he opened it, he was shocked. What's wrong? The other two people were curious and took the backpack to look at it. They were really frightened because the backpack was actually filled with cash, a full backpack. What are you doing? Guangtao didn't dare to accept the money and looked at Wang Ling with a frown, intending to refuse. The other two people had already poured the cash in their backpacks onto the bed, and after counting, it was a total of 300,000. 300,000, this is a huge sum of money for college students like them who have not yet graduated. When it was suddenly dropped, their heads were buzzing. If they were allowed to make their own money, when would they earn so much? Internet writers at the bottom only earn a few thousand a year, but ordinary workers and office workers can earn tens of thousands a year after hard work. This does not include all kinds of expenses such as food, clothing, housing, and transportation. But now, 300,000 yuan in cash was placed in front of them. The temptation was huge, but they did not dare to accept it for a while. After all, he was also a student. Wang Ling understood the current mood of the three of them very well. He smiled and explained, these days, I have been lucky. I made a lot of money from stock trading. Now I am a small tycoon. 300,000 is nothing. Moreover, my life is more than 300,000 yuan. If you don't accept it, I will think that you think the money is too small and I will go and get another 300,000 yuan later. Hey, goodbye, we really don't dare accept any more. Guangtao and the other three were startled and refused again and again. They were not saints, and of course they also liked money. It was just that Wang Ling gave them so much money in one go, and it was hard to accept it. 300,000 is scary enough, but they really don't dare to ask for another 300,000. Pointing to the cash on the bed, Guangtao pointed to the three of them and finally confirmed, are these really for us? Wang Ling smiled and nodded, that's right, 100,000 per person, just keep it without worry. Don't leave it on the bed. Lao Shui and Lily will come later. It will have a bad impact if they see it. Good. Finally, having no worries anymore, the three people's eyes were so bright that they quickly put the money back into their backpacks and hid it in their dormitory. Looking at their backs, Wang Ling smiled heartily. This 300,000 was a lot for them, but in fact it was not too much for Wang Ling. He currently has hundreds of thousands of points in the different dimensional system. If they were all converted into cash, it would be in the tens of millions. Tens of millions of dollars is nothing to some big bosses in the real world, but based on Wang Ling's life, these tens of millions of dollars are enough to last him several lifetimes. However, these funds cannot be withdrawn too much at once, otherwise, even if there is a gimmick from the securities company, it will have to attract the attention of the bank. After all, the dormitory was just that big. Guang Tao and the other three quickly hid the cash and returned to Wang Ling's dormitory with excitement on their faces. Can you not be excited? The three of them originally shared Wang Ling's hospitalization expenses equally, which was only a few thousand each, but Wang Ling directly gave them 100,000. I haven't even graduated from school yet to find a job, but I already have my first pot of gold, and I feel like I'm in high spirits. Being able to come up with 300,000 in cash without even blinking an eyelid, these three people also knew how rich Wang Ling was, and there was no psychological pressure. They even joked, "Where are we going tonight, eat? It's rare to meet such a rich man, so I must beat him hard." Wang Ling didn't show up either. This meal was indeed what he should have invited. Woof woof. Xiao He, don't run so fast, wait for us. Before Wang Ling could decide where to go, he heard Xiao He's dog barking in the corridor, followed by Lily's voice, panting as if she had just climbed up to the 6th floor. Sure enough, not long after, Xiao He brought Lao Shui and Lily to the dormitory, and forced themselves around in front of Wang to ask for credit. These two people had known about Wang Ling before, and now they were surprised when they saw Wang Ling. "Wang Ling, are you awake? What's been going on with you these past few days? I heard Guang Tao said that you have been in a coma." Wang Ling smiled casually and hooked his hands. "Don't be stunned, sit down first." The two of them said oh and sat on the bed beside them, and then buzz. Without saying a word, Wang Ling directly used his mental power to hypnotize the five people. They immediately looked confused. After glancing at them one after another, Wang Ling asked calmly, "Old Shui, Lily, have you ever told others about me?" The two of them shook their heads in unison. "No, Guang Tao told us not to reveal it first. Only the two of us know." "Really? That's easy to handle." Wang Ling smiled, and then started talking nonsense seriously. "You guys, you should be curious about what's going on. Let me explain. In fact, I have been sleeping during these days. It's too much." Speaking of this lame reason again, Wang Ling even had some old-fashioned feelings, not to mention how natural he was, and he didn't even frown when he told lies. In the transfer station, Uncle He had a droopy face. He was too lazy to complain about anything now. No one with any brain would believe such a lame reason, but the hypnotized person seemed to have no brain and subconsciously believed Wang Ling's words. However, Guang Tao's vague words made Wang Ling dumbfounded for a while. "You overslept and slept for so long? Wang Ling, are you too tired because you masturbated too much?" After being silent for a long time, Wang Ling twitched his lips and said, "Just take it as such. Although this is too embarrassing to say, it is better than exposing those special performances, right? Unlike those nurses and doctors, Guang Tao and the others are classmates and will be together for a long time in the future. The reasons cannot be too perfunctory." Wang Ling rubbed his forehead and added, "It's not that I can't wake up if I overslept. It's just that I can't wake up. No one saw me when I woke up, so I went back to sleep because I was too tired, but I kept having nightmares." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 854. This scene is also funny to say the least. Wang Ling seemed to be a big liar, pressing the IQs of Guang Tao, Lao Shui and Lily to the ground and rubbing. However, after being hypnotized, the five of them were unable to resist and could only passively accept Wang Ling's mentally retarded reasons. Under hypnosis, They subconsciously believed in this. After listening to his explanation, Uncle Hay finally couldn't help teasing him, "Oh, it's such a pity that I gave you hypnosis. If I had known you had such a lame excuse, I wouldn't have reminded you about hypnosis. Got it?" Dot. Wang Ling's face darkened, and there seemed to be a few black lines on his forehead. Uncle Hay, what he said was too disrespectful, right? Since it was not a good thing, Wang Ling simply didn't bother to answer. Regardless of whether the reason was mental retardation or lameness, he had already been hypnotized. After achieving his purpose, Wang Ling released the hypnosis. The originally confused eyes of Lao Shui and the other 5 people also recovered their expressions within a few seconds. Now they have remembered Wang Ling's reasons in their minds and completely believed them, but they have no idea that they have been hypnotized. And crappy things are crappy after all. Although they used hypnosis to make them believe this, after the hypnosis ended, Guang Tao laughed unceremoniously, "Ha ha ha, Wang Ling, don't be so indulgent, Xiao He is still here." Even Lao Shui was amazed. "It's okay to indulge once in a while, but it's so rare that you end up in the hospital." Lily's face turned red, while the other 2 laughed and said nothing. Not to mention how embarrassed Wang Ling is now. What is the focus of this? They couldn't let go of a casual remark during hypnosis. Rubbing his hair, Wang Ling warned in a somewhat frantic manner, "What are you thinking about? There are girls here, can't you save some face? Don't tell anyone else about this, I'll be embarrassed. I can't afford this man." "Ha ha ha, I understand." Lao Shui hugged Lily and laughed continuously. "Do you understand? You know a hammer." Wang Ling glared at him and was speechless. No matter what, this topic was finally dropped. Wang Ling sacrificed some reputation and brushed the matter over. Then a group of people discussed the evening's itinerary. They said it was an itinerary, but in fact, it was just where to kill the king. After all, they were just a group of students, and their families were not too wealthy. Even the 3 of them, Guang Tao, knew that Wang Ling was rich now, so they didn't go too far. They just chose a medium-sized hotel near the school and called in advance to book a room. After finishing these tasks, the meeting will be adjourned temporarily. Wang Ling will only focus on dinner this time, not lunch. After the meeting ended, it was lunchtime soon. Wang Ling prepared dried meat and ham for Xiao He in advance and went to the school cafeteria. Speaking of which, he hadn't eaten food in the real world for a long time. He was still a little greedy when he thought about it. The food in the red alert world could only fill his stomach at best and had no decent taste at all. Moreover, although his body has been injected with a lot of nutrient solution, it cannot replace the nutrition of food. Wang Ling has already felt hungry. When he came to the familiar canteen, Wang Ling picked out his favorite food, ordered 3 portions in a row, found an empty table and started eating. He was used to the food in the red alert world. In the real world, even the school cafeteria was delicious. He devoured 3 large portions in a matter of seconds. However, after eating so much in one go, Wang Ling didn't feel full at all, so he had no choice but to pick out some more food and bought a portion for 2 people to continue eating. But after eating, I still had a strong appetite and continued to eat. As a habit developed in the red alert world, Wang Ling ate very quickly, but even so, he stayed in the cafeteria for nearly an hour. It wasn't that he ate slowly, but that he ate too much. He actually ate food for nearly 20 people before he was full. Patting his belly with satisfaction, Wang Ling took a short rest before asking, "Uncle Hay, is my food intake suddenly increasing so much because of the advanced enhancement?" Uncle Hay replied, "It's because of this and the reason of the Wild Beast King. Taken together, your appetite has also increased. After all, you have to maintain sufficient energy. Of course, your appetite is not too exaggerated. It's just that you are too weak these days, and your body is in urgent need of a lot of nutrients, so you eat so much in one go." With your advanced enhanced body, you can withstand it no matter how much you eat, and the excess energy will be stored on its own. It's interesting. Then I can eat whatever I want with the funds exchanged by the system. I don't have to worry about gaining weight. Oh, if people who want to lose weight know this, they will envy me to death. Wang Lingling was delighted. What he said really deserved a beating. After wiping himself clean, Wang Ling slapped his buttocks and left the cafeteria. He returned to the dormitory and rested comfortably all afternoon. He went to the scheduled restaurant on time for dinner. The group of people ate and drank until midnight before dispersing. Everyone went back to their dormitories. Between the two dormitories, before closing the door, Guang Tao joked, "That's right, Wang Ling, be more restrained. Don't go to the hospital because of this again. Get out." Haha. Being controlled by the mind empire for a while brought Wang Ling a lot of trouble in the real world. Fortunately, he acquired the magical skill of hypnosis in time. Now, all possible troubles have finally been settled. Wang Ling lay down on the bed and finally felt a rare sense of relief in his heart. Woof woof. Xiao He also had a good meal tonight. His mouth was full of oil, and he curled his mouth as if he was smiling. Hearing the sound, Wang Ling sat up, hugged Xiao He, and said with a smile, "Fortunately, I have you. If you hadn't called Guang Tao in time and they sent me to the hospital, my body wouldn't have known what happened these days. No matter what happens, maybe the whole body will die." Woof woof. My woo. Xiao He enjoyed this treatment very much, and the corners of his mouth almost reached his ears. After all the work was done, Wang Ling felt relaxed and his attention naturally turned to the world of Red Alert again. That night, after washing and lying on the bed, Wang Ling took a short rest and then returned to the Red Alert world. In the world of Red Alert, Wang Ling was still lying in the cave, and the coolness coming from the mat he had knitted himself made him feel somewhat comfortable. It was only afternoon in Red Alert world, but Wang Ling didn't want to be busy with anything else right now, so he simply continued to lie here, planning to sleep until early the next morning. However, just as he was sleeping soundly until midnight, he suddenly heard the levitating sound of the laser UFO. He was startled and immediately opened his eyes.